And then I finished the sweater and tried it on and thought, okay, what was I thinking? I am not that cool. That's the only seam, I promise. The rest is really seamless. And that also made this into a infinitely adjustable neck depth option. Hello, my name is Zanete. I am the designer behind Zanete Knits, and welcome to a pattern deep dive. This time it's on a tempo sweater, one I'm wearing, for which a pattern is about to be released. So in this video, I wanted to tell you all about the inspiration, the yarn I used, the gauge and needle size, the construction and sizing and all the techniques used, and finish with some possible customization or modification options. The existence of this sweater is inspired by a wardrobe need. I wanted something kind of classic and timeless, but with a contemporary or a modern twist in the details. So this one isn't just a plain V-neck per se. It's got quite an interesting neckline finish, and it also features the slanted European shoulder. I'll admit I'm quite obsessed with that construction. And for some extra texture, it's covered with rhythmically placed twisted stitch columns on a reverse stockinette base. This design was created in collaboration with Moondrake. I've been wanting to try the Fua Fua base for a very long time. It's a merino and brushed cashmere base. I'm using the sport weight version. However, the gauge is 16 times 24. 16 stitches, 24 rows in a 10 by 10 or centimeters or 4 by 4 inches. So it's quite a loose gauge, and if you would use an alternative yarn, I'd suggest something really fluffy. Otherwise, the fabric would be quite see-through if you went with a different sport weight yarn. This is a very bold and bright colorway called magenta, but I think this sweater would work in pretty much any color. The gauge is measured on the 1 by 3 twisted rib that's used throughout the sweater. And for that, I needed to use 4.5 millimeter, that is US size 7 needle. And then we go down a needle size to attach the finishing edging here around the neckband. For that, I had to go to 3.75 US size 5. The sweater is designed to be worn with a 10 to 15 centimeter, that is 4 to 6 inch positive ease. So it's not too oversized, it's rather quite fitted, but it of course depends on your preference. And it comes in 9 sizes, and the finished bust or chest circumference for the smallest size is 90 centimeters, and that is 36 inches. And it goes all the way up to 170 centimeters or 68 inches. I'll admit, initially I wanted the V-neck to be really, really deep, almost down to my belly button. And then I finished the sweater and tried it on and thought, okay, what was I thinking? I am not that cool. So my original statement piece idea went out the window because I didn't think it was gonna practically work for me in my wardrobe with the rest of the things that I own. So I ended up adding this seam here. That's the only seam, I promise. The rest is really seamless. And that also made this into a infinitely adjustable neck depth option. But I'll go in more detail about that towards the end of the video, because the really exciting part about the construction is what I'd like to talk about first. So, and that will also give some context when you're listening out for the possible modifications. This is an intermediate level pattern because there is a lot of short rows, and you have to be able to read your knitting to make sure that as you move across back and forth, you understand whether you need to purl or knit the newly incorporated stitches. Other than probably a little bit more focus on the caps here at the sleeves, the rest is fairly straightforward. We start at the back, casting on stitches just for the neckline, and we increase rapidly to the full width of the back. And at that point, we just stay straight until we get to where we need to add additional stitches for the armhole shaping. And we put stitches on hold to then attach each shoulder separately. We work to somewhere around here, and then we need to do a few increases to ensure that when we eventually meet here at the bottom, we'll have enough stitches to fit complete pattern repeats, and for the back and front widths to match. And once we get to the armhole shaping, we join all of this in one piece, but we still continue flat all the way down to where we want the neck ribbing detail to end. And at that point, we can join in the round and work to our desired length, and finally finish with 1x1 twisted rib. Mine's quite cropped, but you could go for forever. And then we could either add the neckband or the sleeves. It doesn't matter really the order, but the sleeve stitches are picked up around the armhole, and then we work back and forth the short rows that shape the cut. And we also need to do quite a few decreases around here because our armhole circumference is much bigger than our upper arm circumference. So doing short rows at the same time as decreases is a little bit of a focus requiring activity. When you get to the upper arm circumference and you finish all the short rows, is just smooth sailing. We do a little bit of tapered decreases to the cuff. I actually have made mine 3/4 lengths, but the pattern has the instructions for the full length sleeves that you can make the sleeve as long as you'd like. In the test knit, there were some knitters who chose to make this into a short sleeve version, so that works as well. And then we added the rib by picking up the stitches all around here, and we knit the rib here flat. So quite a lot of stitches on the needles, so circular needles, of course, are our friend there. And when we get to half of this opening here, we bind off all the stitches. I'm using tubular bind off because it in my opinion works really well for this design, but any bind off goes. Then you get to attach the band edges here at the base of the neckline, as well as seam them together using mattress stitch here all the way to where you decided you wanted to end. So as I said, it's infinitely adjustable. One of our test knitters actually made a cardigan. She never joined in the round, and so she also didn't have to do the seaming part. It's a very, very straightforward modification. It's a nice segue into the modifications, but I'm pretty sure I've already covered the obvious ones. So sleeve length is adjustable, the neck depth is adjustable, how far you want this detail ribbing to go is all adjustable. And if you are intrigued by this construction, but you're not quite sure whether you'd be able to execute all the short rows for the sleeve cap shaping, perhaps you could make a version that is not in twisted rib but in plain stockinette, because it's certainly a lot easier to do short rows in this area here if all of it is in plain stockinette. So substituting the 1x3 twisted rib with a stockinette stitch is a great modification. I'd love to see if anyone does that and what that looks like. Obviously, you could also mix and match and do the body in the twisted rib for the vertical stripes, but then when it gets to sleeves, just make them in stockinette. That will be adding yet another texture fabric or to the variety of the textures of the sweater. That's pretty much it. I have already worn it countless times. I really love it. Thanks to the yarn, it's such a light sweater, and it's also really warm, and it's really nice to touch because of the cashmere. So I highly recommend sticking with the original yarn if you can. If not, then please do pick something that's fluffy, because sport weight yarn, if we go with a round smooth sport weight yarn, and we try and do 16 stitches for a gauge, that is going to look more like a mesh than knitted fabric. If you are a newsletter subscriber, in a few days you'll get a newsletter with the pattern, link to the pattern and your exclusive discount code. And if not, there's still some time to subscribe. You follow the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.